Good morning, Pastor Dan.
Good morning, Pastor Brett.
Or should I call you Billy Bob Joe? Because
Yes,
that is the name that is popping up on my computer for you right now.
that's right. Today I am now known as Billy Bob Joe.
And why are you known as? How did that even come to be?
Last night, you hosted a Zoom meeting with all of the kids at our church.
I did do
And
that.
so my son used my computer, and apparently he changed my name to Billy Bob Joe instead of Pastor Dan.
I love it. That is very creative, Billy Bob
Yes,
Joe.
yes. I don't even know where he got that from. So,
That is the pinnacle of creativity right there.
yep.
Well, how you been?
I've been doing pretty good. And yourself?
That's good. I have been doing okay. What have you done in this past week, Billy Bob Joe?
Billy
Shoot.
Bob Joe and his
Sounds
kids.
What have you done over this past week, Pastor Dan, to save the shutdown?
One thing that we did over the weekend, which was probably the highlight of our weekend, was that we cut down a big old dead pine tree in my backyard. Yep. So I shouldn't say big old. I mean, it was probably a good 25, maybe 30 feet high or whatever. And it died late fall last year, early winter. And so I've been staring at it all winter long. And it's just been the bane of my existence for the last 3 or 4 months. And so then finally I said, enough of this, it's coming down. So I got my kids outside and we cut it down, got my father-in-law's chainsaw. Oh man, I got to give myself one of those. So, oh my goodness, that chainsaw is incredible. So, anyways, yeah, cut it down, cut it up, had a big old bonfire. So
Dang, that's awesome.
it was good. So we got a bunch of wood now stacked.
I'm
So.
surprised you didn't just pick it up out of the ground and break it over your knee.
Well, the first day we cut it down, and then the second day, my son and I, we went back out there to dig up the stump.
Oh yeah.
And so, oh man, that's work. So we ended up pulling the stump out of the ground. So it took a lot of work, but it was good. So we got it out.
And then I'm sure you flexed on the stump afterwards too.
Oh man,
Also,
that's right.
Last night when we were meeting with the kids, all of a sudden here comes Pastor Dan onto the screen, on your screen, and you flexed on all of us. It looked like you're going to work out.
That's right. I was, man. I had on my hoodie. I had my Bluetooth headphones there.
I saw it. Listen,
ready to rock and roll.
When I work out, I get in one of those moods where I'm like, I'm gonna go so hard in the paint right now. I'm gonna go so hard in the gym. I go into this like mode called Hoodie Brett, where I literally I'll put the hoodie on, I'll get the headphones in, and it is like that is time to go to work, man.
That's right. You gotta get in the zone.
When you get that hood up, it is time to go to work.
Probably about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, when all of this, started to come down and the shutdown went into place. I've got this place in my house. I refer to it as Dan Land, at least, and that's what my kids refer to it as. And so I took all my workout stuff and I put it in there and I rearranged it. So now Dan Land's become like a little workout place for me too. That's my own little sanctuary. Before it was kind of out in the open, like the rest of the basement stuff. Now I've got my own workout place in Dan Land.
Dan Land.
That's
I want to visit Dan Land and pump some iron.
That's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet.
That'd be awesome. And you gave me some dumbbells. One of our church members picked up some dumbbells and he gave you some plates and he gave me a pair of dumbbells. That's been huge for me, just having those dumbbells without in this time to go to the gym. It's made a big difference because I've been using like backpacks full of books for workouts, and I've been
pushing cars up and down the street.
Yeah, pushing cars. Yeah, exactly. But now I actually got some weight, so that's pretty nice. So I hope one day I can make my own version of Dan Land.
Brett Land, yeah.
Brett Land. Yeah, I gotta think of a more creative name than that, but we'll come up with something.
Yeah. So, all right, man. What have you been doing for saving the shutdown?
Well, nothing quite as fun as tearing trees out of the ground and
ripping them out of the ground.
But it is finals week this week for me and for school. So I have been grinding. I have been writing a lot of papers and studying for a couple big tests. So It's kept me busy, which is good.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's a lot of work.
Do you have more exams or do you have just papers to write? What do you
Uh,
like? How many you got?
I have one exam and then two final papers. And so
How
one of
long? How big do the papers have to be?
well, one of them is a commentary. I have to write a commentary on the entire book of Ruth,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
which is 4 chapters. I think it's like 85 verses or something like that. But I think that's a 4,000 or 5,000 word paper, and then I have another 4,000 or 5,000 word paper and an exam.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, yeah. So it is. I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned a ton, which has been really,
Yeah.
like by the time I finish this, I mean, I already feel like I know the book of Ruth, like I got it down pat,
Inside and out,
and I
frontwards and
haven't even
backwards.
gotten into the chapters yet. I've just written the context and the intro. That's it.
There you go.
By the time I'm done with it, I'm gonna have that book down, and it's just been fun. I mean, it's been fun, but it's also been a lot of work.
Oh, I bet. There's a part of me that wishes there's probably a big part of me that wishes I could go back and redo that stuff. Oh man, I miss it.
When you get your PhD, you'll be Dr. Dan, and then your gym will be Dr. Dan Land right there. That's
or it could be Dr. Billy Bob Joe Land.
That's right. Yeah, Dr. Billy Bob Joe Land. I love it. It. But it sounds like neither of us have been wasting the cut down, which is good.
No, not at all. So I do have to cut the grass. I think the grass is getting long enough to be able to cut. So
yeah, that's fun though. I like cutting the grass. That's one thing I miss about not having my own place is
cutting grass.
Cutting the grass. Yeah, it's like soothing to me.
Yeah, I got a pretty big yard. It takes me about it probably takes me about 2 hours, 45 minutes to 3 hours, 15 minutes. Just depends on how fast I want to go to actually cut the grass.
Yeah.
And I love it because it's Dan time.
Yeah.
I put my headphones in, I go out there, nobody bothers me. So it's really
Are you the music guy while you cut the grass?
Oh no, it's podcasts and usually sports talk radio.
Love it. Hey, speaking of sports talk radio, that is a perfect transition into what I want to talk about next, because last week,
yes,
we had the NFL draft.
Yes, we did. It was glorious.
And our Detroit Lions. Yes, this is a NFL Lions podcast. We support the NFL and we support through thick and through thin. But the Lions, Pastor Dan, I feel like they had a pretty good draft. I want to take the next few minutes here to get your take on how you felt about the Lions pick. What was your favorite pick? What was your least favorite pick? Who do you think your sleeper pick was? Just give me some what you think about our draft this year.
I thought the Lions did really good this last week, this year's draft. This is probably one of the best drafts that BQ and Patricia put together.
I agree.
I do wish that they would have gone a little more defensive line-ish overall. But like that first pick, I wish they would have gone with a defensive lineman of some sort. But I still think Okudah is going to be a great player. I really like the second round pick, DeAndre Swift.
Yes.
I think that guy, he is going to be a stud. Excellent compliments to Kerryon Johnson. So with those two picks, I think those are pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. We got I can never say this guy's last name. Okwara.
Yeah, Romeo. It's not Romeo. It's
Julian.
Brother. Yes,
Julian. It's Julian. Romeo and Julian. I thought that was pretty good.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
didn't do that on purpose?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think that was on purpose. But anyways, I hope his health holds up because that could be a great addition for the defensive line there.
If he didn't break his leg in college, he would have been a first round pick without a doubt.
Yep, I agree.
And, I'm a big Michigan State fan, and Michigan State had a player 2 years ago break his leg. I think his name was Steve Lucas, and then he came back last year off that broken leg, and he was.
How was he?
He was just as dominant.
Was he really?
And I know, like every they're not all the same when somebody breaks their leg, but my hope is that's kind of the same thing. And hey, he broke his leg, he's gonna have a full recovery, and he's gonna come back next year, and he's gonna be a force on the side of the ball.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just thought the Lions did really good. They drafted another running back. It had my head scratching a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you mentioned to me earlier that might be our kick return guy.
Yeah, Jason Huntley. What's his name?
Yeah. So he's I think he could be obviously useful. And then we got that offensive lineman from Ohio State. My
Yes.
phone's blowing up right now. Let me turn this off here.
Oh, yeah, you're good. Jonah Jackson, and we took him
Yeah.
third round with the 75th pick.
Oh, I know. I think that guy's gonna pan out. I'm
Yeah.
really pumped about him. So what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on the
and
draft?
I really liked it. I really did. And I think with the Okuda pick, there were a lot of frustrated fans because they're thinking, hey, we just got rid of Darius Slay, our
Right.
best defensive back last year. We traded him and we picked up we only spent the third pick of the draft on another defensive back who's probably not going to be as good as Slay. And I understand that. But my whole mindset with that is, okay, not only did we get rid of Slay, that freed up some cap space, that got us some money.
Mm-hmm.
We take Okuda, who's going to be dominant. I mean, he was dominant in college. He only allowed like 30% completion rate on balls that were thrown in his direction, which is like incredible when you think about quarterbacks in the Big Ten last year and what he'll be seeing in the NFL. And so what we have now is we have a dominant defensive back with cap space, which I hope the Lions then use that cap space that we got from trading Slay to address the defensive line.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my hope with the draft is, hey, we're not drafting defensive line this year, or it's not going to be our main focus, but it is going to be our main focus in free agency.
Yeah.
And I understand.
The first wave of free agency is already come and gone.
Right.
That opened up the beginning of March. So there's only a few guys left out there on the market. So I hope the Lions spend some of that money because if we can't apply pressure to opposing quarterbacks, Okuda's going to have just as a hard time defending those guys as Darius Slay did last year.
Yeah, exactly. But there still are names out there, and we still have Trey Flowers on the line. We still have Okwara on the line.
Yeah.
Okwara. So it's like we have some pieces. We just have to get a big piece to me. And I think a name that you and I have talked about is Clowney. I know he can't stay healthy, but
I know the health of his. And he's going to want a big contract too.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'd be willing to give him a big contract. Him being injury prone. So.
But he's a force. And then the other thing that I loved about our draft was our 5th round pick. It was a receiver out of Wisconsin, Quintez Cephas. And I love the fact that we drafted him. And then our 1st round pick, Okuda came out and said Cephas was the most troubling receiver I had the most trouble guarding him out of any other receiver in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Yep.
He said that guy was the hardest guy to defend. In the Big Ten, you got a lot of good receivers out there.
Yeah, they said he doesn't have speed. He ran like a ridiculously slow 40. I forget what it was, but they were equating him to like an Anquan Bolden type of guy, just a big, I don't know how big he is, but just a physical receiver.
Yeah.
So just like, he's going to be able to, run out 5 yards, grab the ball, and then push off the defender and then run for another 15, 20, right?
Yeah. And think about Matthew Stafford. He loves tight ends. He loves those short routes where he can fire that ball in. I mean, he could be the perfect receiver for that. He could be a great guy. He ran a 4.73 40-yard dash, which is
not good.
Slow.
That's not good.
That is not. But
hold on. This is off the subject a little bit. There was this replay from some 49ers game a few years ago of Joe Staley running down the field. That guy had some wheels. He just retired, but man, that guy flew. Like, I could not believe how fast he was running down the field. I'll have to find it and send it to you.
Oh, that is so funny. That is so funny. I would love to
this
see
big
that.
old offensive lineman just hauling.
Hey, those O-linemen, they're quick.
Yeah, you gotta be, man.
Yeah,
you got
especially
those
nowadays, you
linemen.
get off the edge so quickly. So, what is your overall grade for the Lions draft?
I'm going to put it at, man, I'm like teeter-tottering between a B+ and an A-.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very impressed. And I mentioned this to you earlier as well. Just when you think you're over and done with, when it comes to the Lions, they somehow managed to reel you back in. And this draft definitely reeled me back in. So
that's the line. They did. And I'm B+. I'm right with you. I'm B+, but very happy. I wasn't happy with Okuda. I wanted to trade down.
Yeah.
But as the draft went on, I'm like, I love this. I love this pick. I love this pick. I love this pick. It was just very, like, They just did the right thing for the first time. Like when
Right.
Swift was on the board, I'm like, take Swift, but they
Yep.
won't. I said in my head, they won't do it. They're the Lions.
Right.
With the second round pick in the NFL draft, the Lions take Swift, and I was
I
like,
know.
they did
I
something
was
that like common
pumped.
sense.
I know. I was so excited. So I think I text you and a couple of other people we
Yeah,
text on our little Lions HCC,
yeah,
group messaging yes with like 20 or 50 exclamation points. So
yeah. So that's it. B plus, A
oh,
minus. I'll go with that. I like it.
yeah.
That is
With
the
what
official two pastures in a pod grade for the Lions
Yeah,
draft.
there we go. There we go. The one thing, and I've been prepping my kids for this. I think one day soon, we're gonna have to part from Matthew Stafford, and I love that man. But I think that one day something's gonna happen, and we're gonna have to move on from him. So, and I was anticipating something this draft. I'm not saying necessarily trade him or us pull a Green Bay Packers and draft a quarterback in the first round. That's a mess. But I think probably next year, this may even be his last year as a Lion.
Yeah,
I hate to
I
say
can
it
see
because I
that.
love
I
the
can see
guy.
him getting traded
So
next year, especially if he has a great year this year.
yeah, I mean, man, you'd be able to get a first round pick for him.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, easy.
very hot take. Patriots possibly tanking for Trevor Lawrence.
Oh,
If they
geez.
win too many games, they don't get Trevor Lawrence. We need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Lions come in.
Well, what did I text you last night? What did I text you last night? Aaron Rodgers, and this is after another podcast that you and I kind of listened to, but
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is going to force his way out of Green Bay, and he's going to go over to New England.
That would
Watch out. Watch
that
out,
would be
NFL.
terrifying. That would be a behemoth of a team. That would be so scary.
Oh, man.
No. But he is
Such a
35,
mess.
right? Aaron Rodgers is
36. He's 36. But the guy still got, I think he's got a good 3 or 4 more years of football. So,
good football too. Now
yeah.
I know
Right.
slow down, but yeah, I agree.
Yep, definitely. So,
cool.
All right, man. Today, what I'd like to bring to the table is just to talk about 3 things how the coronavirus has changed the church. And so, once again, this has kind of been my mantra for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I haven't come to any definitive conclusions with each and every single one of these 3 items here. But there are 3 things that I held opinions about prior to the whole shutdown that I now have kind of changed my opinion on, or I'm at least seeing from a different perspective. And so I'd like to take just the next few moments here to talk about that. Is that cool?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. All right. So the first one is just online church. So before the coronavirus hit and there was the shutdown, a lot of mega churches, a lot of the larger churches, they were offering online campuses.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And these campuses, they're offered for people who can't make it to church on Sunday, or even if they have like a Saturday service or even a midweek service just because of their work schedule or for some other reason, they're putting together these online churches. And my big saying, my thinking that I've always had, and I still do think along these lines here, is that if you want to be a part of a church, you need to actually physically be at that church.
Yes.
You need to bless them with your physical presence on Sunday morning, and then even more so on Wednesday nights. And I think that the more that you're there physically present at church, the more you're going to be a part of that church, and the more you're going to get out of church as well.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that too. It's more than just a Sunday morning thing,
Right.
It's Sunday morning, Wednesday nights, events, work days, all that stuff. I'm right with you on that. If you want to be a part of the church, be there.
And be at church. I mean, it's just real simple.
Yeah.
So obviously, we as a church here in the great state of Michigan and many other churches across our country have not been able to physically gather.
Yeah.
So there's been a wrench kind of thrown into this whole idea of church. What does it mean to be a part of a church? I still do feel like if you're going to be a part of a church, you need to actually physically interact and gather together. So I took a look at the book of Acts where we see the birth of the church, and just a few verses here that I've got listed off. I'm just going to rattle through them here. Acts chapter 1, verse 14, it talks about the very beginning of the church. It says, all these, I'm talking about the early Christians, the early followers of Jesus Christ, with one accord were devoting themselves to prayer and to gather and together with the women and with Jesus's brother. So we see that they were actually, I'm sorry, Acts chapter 1, verse 14. This is right on the heels of, hold on one second. Let me pull out my trusty Bible here. Let me make sure I'm thinking straight here.
Of course.
All right, yeah, so this is right after the ascension. So all of these with one accord were devoting themselves to prayer together with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brother. So we see that they were physically in each other's presence. You go to the next chapter, you go to Acts chapter 2, verse 46, and it says the same thing there. It talks about how they gathered on a regular basis. And when I say regular basis, I mean every single day. It says Acts chapter 2, verse 46, and day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts. And then if you go a couple of chapters later, even after that, Acts chapter 5, verse 12, it says this, now many signs and wonders were regularly done among the people by the hands of the apostles, and they were all together in Solomon's portico. So,
Yeah.
so once again, just the importance of physically gathering together. We see that is so huge when it comes to actually being a part of a church.
Yeah. And that word together was in all three of those verses. So it's like not only is that key theme, but that is the main thing, is that we meet together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So prior to the coronavirus, you've got these online campuses, and they're not actually physically gathering together. And so that's kind of where, it just bothers me a little bit, and even right now in the midst of the coronavirus, where we as a church, we are not able to physically gather together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of created this conundrum. Well, how are we to be the church when we can't physically gather together?
Yeah. And I think with going back to, the big churches that provide their services online on a weekly basis, that's even outside of and before the coronavirus. I think there's positives and negatives to that, because I think that does provide an opportunity for people to decide, hey, we're not going to go physically to church today. We're not going to physically meet together. We're going to stay home and watch it online instead. But on the flip side of that, you have people like shut-ins who physically can't leave their house and can't go out. And for them, it's a great thing, because they can still be at church without physically being, there. So again, it is tough, because when you provide that as an option, it's good in some ways and it can be bad in others.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, over and over and over again, together. If you can physically get yourself to church, you should be at church.
Go to church, right? Exactly. So I know some of those larger churches with the online campuses, one of the things that they also perform is like chat rooms, or places where they can go and on the internet, and they can interact with each other. I mean, I've never actually seen one of those chat rooms or been a part of it, so I'm really curious as to what that looks like and how that interaction takes place. Because obviously today we can do a lot of stuff online, and then also, I mean, just take a look at what we're doing right now. You and I, we're not physically together. However, we are virtually together.
Yeah.
So, okay, I can see how this is somewhat possible. How an online campus, there is some legitimacy to it. I do still think, though, that with these online campuses, and even through this format that we've got going on right now throughout the coronavirus, whether it be social media or these Zoom meetings, is that it's way more difficult to carry out the one another commands in the scriptures that we see. Love one another, pray for one another, care for each other's needs, type of thing. And then you brought up another great point, so you do have those shut-ins, you do have those people who are unable to physically make it to church, and here is an opportunity, or here's an outlet for them to be a part of that church. I think that for those of us who are able to physically gather together, then we need to make a conscious effort to reach out to those shut-ins.
Great point.
Physically.
Yes.
And to make sure that they are somehow incorporated into the body of Christ, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just going to kind of go off on a tangent here too. I mean, what's the other metaphor that the Bible uses to describe the church? And that is a family, right? I mean, if you're part of a family, you're going to be in each other's physical presence. You're going to be interacting. You're going to be developing relationships with each other. You're not just going to be viewing from a distance at home on your computer screen. And here's even the other thing too. If you're really truly part of the church, if you're really truly part of the family of God, you're not even just sitting in the back row, or you're sitting wherever during the worship service, and then as soon as it's over and done with, you're out the door. I mean, you are interacting with the other believers there who are part of that church. You're developing those particular relationships. So,
yeah. And backtracking,
Yeah.
quickly backtracking to the whole shut-in, because I know I brought that whole thing up as well. Like, yes, it's a great outlet for them to be able to watch those services online, but I'm going to say, I don't want to say all the time, but most of the time, those shut-ins will say, yeah, I'm glad I have this, but I miss that physical interaction. When people visit, it literally means the world to me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and I know you've done this and I've done this, taking students, like you students, to a rake and run. And the whole entire time, the person is inside the shut-in is inside their house watching us, because they just miss that physical interaction, that togetherness that we talked about so much, and they enjoy those rake and runs and those events and those work days and stuff like that. So that's a great point that you made as well. It's good that you have the online services for them, but you can go and visit them. That should be a goal of for the church body as well.
Right. So, I mean, as far as online church is concerned, I think that it is a great temporary solution, but I don't think that it is a permanent substitute.
Yes.
So, I mean, my feelings here in a few weeks, hopefully, if the governor lifts this ban, I really hope she does. When we do gather back together, I mean, I'm still going to hold to that mantra that if you want to be a part of the church, then you got to be at church, but thankfully today's day and age, we've got this technology here that we can make use of. And I'm even reflecting back on what was happening 2,000 years ago. I mean, you got the Apostle Paul. I mean, he recognizes the fellowship of all believers, and he utilized the ways of communication of his days, and that is writing letters, and through those, through the process of writing and sending and reading letters, you still have the body of Christ being built up there. So it's interesting. All right. So that was the first thing, just how the coronavirus has kind of impacted the church. It's just the fellowship. The second thing, and this I was once again old school on, and I probably still am a little old school, although I've definitely lightened up a little bit, is just online giving. I know you are very much a millennial in this regards. You have no issue with this at all.
I am very pro online giving.
Yes, I know you are. Me, on the other hand, I just think that there's something about, pulling out the checkbook, writing out the check, or, taking that, those bills, that, cash, putting it in an envelope and putting it in the offering plate. Somebody that I was talking to, one of my mentors, he said something, because he has the same fears that I have, and that is, he fears that online giving is going to become no different than paying your electric bill, or paying your, your utility bill, or your internet, bill, because you just plug it into your computer. It just becomes a regular thing, and it's just looped into the rest of those particular items there. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that's a great point, and I'm not gonna, fight.
Right.
Like, I understand where you're coming from. But I think one of the things that I have found, speaking on behalf of Am I a millennial? I don't know if I'm 46. I don't even know how it works, but
I'm like barely a millennial. I think
yeah.
it starts like 1980 to 95 or something. I was born in 81, so.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what it is, but just for like, I don't know. I guess for younger people, one of the things that one of the mistakes that I've made often in church is I'm sitting in church and I'm like, I never carry cash. You
Yeah.
know, I don't. I do write checks, but very rarely, and I don't really carry. Young people, they just don't carry checkbooks with them. I mean,
Right.
we don't really have them. They'll be like times where I'm like, oh, I totally forgot to give. Well, I'll just double up next week and I won't forget. And I'll forget
Yeah.
the next week. Oh, I'll triple up next week. And that's what I end up having to do. Whereas with online giving, it's just like, boom, it's getting done, you know, each and every week. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm coming from is like, I think a lot of young people today don't give at all because it's just,
Yep.
it's not that it's too much work. It's just that it's not what they're used to doing. They don't carry checkbooks. They don't carry cash, you know.
Yeah.
It's just they have debit cards, credit cards, and
Do
their
you
phones.
think this? I wasn't planning on talking about this, but you brought this up. Do you think that the younger generation views church as a free service? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Definitely.
you know
And
how, I mean, they just assume that some things should come free in life.
mhm,
You know, I know that there's a push for internet being free for everybody, you
mhm,
know, and
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's important to not stereotype, and I know you're not doing it,
Right. I know.
but for
I'm sorry.
people to not stereotype
Right.
all um, millennials or Gen Z, is that the new one? I don't even know that's the new
I
one, but
don't know.
for all young people into that category. I do think that's true in some ways, especially when it comes to church. People just come in and expect, hey, feed me, you know, give me this, and I'll walk out and I'll be good to go.
Right.
You know, they don't understand, you know, what keeps churches going. They don't understand, you know, why we give. One of the things that my father-in-law, he's actually a pastor. One of the things that he says is, he says, you know, when we don't give and we don't tithe, we are just closing ourselves off, you
Yeah.
know, to God and saying, hey, I'm keeping what's mine. This is mine. You can't have it, you know. Whereas if we tithe and if we give, we open ourselves up. When we open ourselves up to give, then God can give even more back into us.
Right.
I really like that analogy, and because giving has nothing to do with, you know, expecting blessings and wanting blessings, but it's living in obedience and also, you know, supporting the local church, which is important to do.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's important for people like myself, like youth pastors, and like parents
Hmm.
to teach their kids from an early age, hey, this is what we do and this is why we do it.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't the church being selfish and wanting money for themselves, you know.
Right. One of the mentalities that the Bible instructs us to have when it comes to our finances, and you hit upon it there, is just, you know, we are stewards, you
Right.
know, and so, you know, God blesses us with certain financial blessings, and we need to be good stewards of those financial blessings. And so one way we can express that back to the Lord and be good stewards of it is by tithing.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's something else I wanted to bring up here too. The Bible also teaches that tithing is a form of worship.
You're right.
You know?
Right.
It is a way in which we can express our gratitude towards God, and a way in which we can also express our trust in Him.
Mm-hmm.
Like like you were saying there, you know, so often, you know, we want to hold on to our money because that's, you know, something a lot of people find security in, right?
Right.
Oh man, I need every single dollar that I make
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, I can't pay my bills if, you know, I don't have all, you know, if I don't have all my paycheck here. But man, if you give that 10%, or if you give that percentage of your particular paycheck, you are in essence, you know, saying to God, okay, God, I'm trusting you, not just with my salvation, but I'm also trusting you with my finances here.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, I take a look at a couple of passages here too. I mean, we just hit upon this on our Sunday morning. You go back to Genesis chapter 14, you've got Abram, you know, tithing to Melchizedek, you know, as basically a form of worship, you know, praising the God Most High, you
Mm-hmm.
know, granting him that particular victory over his enemies. And then you go to Luke chapter 21, verses 1 through 4, you've got the example of the poor widow. Remember Jesus, he's in the temple and he sees somebody give out of his abundance, and then he sees this poor widow, you know, give like what little she does have, and he uses her as an example. He like points her out, saying, now that is what worship is all about there. So I mean, I've even thought about this in regards, I know this can be oftentimes misconstrued and distorted. And I know the devil and Satan, he uses this to, uh, plant sinful thoughts in people's heads. But I even think the actual gift or the actual action of taking that envelope or taking that check, taking that cash and putting it in the offering plate is a visible physical form of worship. And it's an opportunity for you to physically, worship God. And then the body of Christ that is there, that is also witnessing that, can also use that thing like, oh, Lord, thank you for working in Pastor Dan's life or in Pastor Brett's life. We see that he's trusting, his finances are in your hands. And so when you don't do that physically, you kind of cheat yourself out of being able to physically worship God. And you also cheat the rest of the congregation out. Oftentimes, though, like I was just talking about, the Satan uses that. People are looking, oh, who's giving, who's not giving? Oh, this person doesn't give, so.
Yeah, I know. And I always keep my head down. And I'm always
right. You don't want to know who's giving and who's not giving, because don't make those judgments, right?
Yeah. So. And I understand that. And so, but taking back to what I was saying earlier too about the younger generation, though, I think that for us being forced into online giving has opened up an opportunity for me to go to young people, and even for parents to go to young people and say, hey, this is your opportunity as well to give a little bit that you have, you know. Or I don't know how much kids have, but I know we have one student who works very hard at our church and is has quite a bit of money, so it's kind of sense. But I think it's an opportunity to really teach some young people, why we give, how to give, so on and so forth. So,
before we move on to the last, little thing here, one of the things that has encouraged me the most over these last, 6-7 weeks here is actually seeing people drive to the church and walk up to the church just to hand in their tithe. Because they're not only sacrificing their finances, but they're sacrificing their time, and you could even say their health if they're afraid that, my secretary and I have the coronavirus, they're putting their health on the line. But nonetheless, you see these people driving up to the church to, bring in their financial gifts to support the ministry here, and so that's just, it's so encouraging to me as a pastor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really cool. Sorry about my blinds moving back here. My cat was trying to go outside. It's hard to do it 2 pastors in a pod from home.
I thought you had like the door open and the wind blowing through or something.
I was going to tell you to hold on.
Get up to 70 today.
I know. So. I'm loving it. But yeah, and I think what I've seen is even for me, okay, I'll just going back to a quick story here. Last week, we actually had a bat get stuck inside of our building at our church. And we called.
That's terrifying.
It was terrifying. And we called one of our church members, who is like a resident bat expert, as we found out, to come up and deal with the bat. And when she came in, even for like me, it was just such a relief to have that brief moment of interaction with her, even though she was trapping a bat and letting it out, which was in my youth room, by the way, and letting it outside. And I think for people who do come into church, who do come in to visit, I think it's the same thing for them. I think it's just like a breath of fresh air in a way. Just even to have a few moments with the mask on and being properly social distance with Pastor Dan, is better than nothing at all. And I know that's been the case for me. And that's why I just cannot wait to get back to meeting in person, because I know that first Sunday is going to be a special Sunday for a lot of people.
Yeah, it'll be pretty cool. It'll be pretty sweet. Looking forward to it. So, All right, my last little ditty here. How has the coronavirus changed the church? And it comes down to communion, or AKA the Lord's Supper. And so, once again, this is something that I have been struggling with. We've gone through at least one Sunday, our church, we celebrate and we remember the Lord's Supper the first Sunday of every month. And so we've had one Sunday where we have not done that, and I've seen some churches, just instruct their parishioners, instruct their church members to go ahead and to do it just at home. Other churches, they're like, nope, this is something that falls underneath or falls within the jurisdiction of the local church. And so this is something that I've been struggling with too as a pastor. How am I supposed to handle the Lord's Supper? There is nothing in the scriptures that say you have to do it once a month, or you have to do it every Sunday, or you have to even do it once a year or whatever. I think that there's some churches that only do it at like Easter time. They may do it at Christmas time. I'm not 100% sure there. Just for me though, going back to one of the key texts, it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 17 through 34. You have the Apostle Paul there. He's instructing the church in Corinth, how to go about handling as the local church the Lord's Supper, also known as communion. And Paul, on 4 different occasions, in verse 17 and verse 18 and verse 20 and verse 23, he says this to the church there at Corinth: when you come together, when you come together, when you come together, when you come together. So for me, taking a look at that particular passage as it relates to the Lord's Supper and how we are to handle the Lord's Supper here, I think, as far as this is where I'm at right now, the Lord's Supper is something that we are to practice, that we are to be obedient to. It is one of the ordinances Jesus tells his disciples is something that you need to do in order to be obedient to me, is remember me in the Lord's Supper. But you need to do it as a church when you come together. So there's that physical presence there.
Yeah.
And so right now, I mean, I know we've missed one Sunday. We're going to be missing another Sunday here this week. Yeah, this upcoming Sunday. So, I know that we have not been able to celebrate the Lord's Supper, two times here. So this is something that I think is reserved just for when the church, for the body of Christ, when we come together physically. So that's where I'm at right now. That may change if the governor keeps us shut down for another year or whatever. So I mean, I may change my tune then, but for right now, that's kind of where my convictions land and stand.
Yeah.
So.
And I agree with you. And I think it's important to remember, for all of us to remember, that communion is not something, like you said, that we are mandated to do every single month. We're not mandated to do it on the first.
We are mandated to do it,
Correct.
but it doesn't say.
I was about to clarify that.
Yeah.
And so as difficult as it is to miss it on the first end of every month, which is when we at HCC do it, it's important to understand that, and to understand that, hey, it's okay, but when we get back together, as you said, I like that you cited scripture for that as well. We will get back to it. But
yeah,
I think some people are upset, and they get, and not just, I'm not saying just with us, with our church, but with other churches, and they get upset that it's not happening on the first of every month. And I understand that, but it's important to remember that, hey, we are mandated to do it, but it's not a particular time, date, so on and so forth.
Yeah. When you take a look at the scriptures too, the Bible talks about how the Lord's Supper falls specifically within the jurisdiction of the church and the church's leaders. And so it's something that I stress whenever we do go through and we do practice this particular ordinance, is that we guard the table. And what I mean by that is the communion table, the Lord's Supper, is reserved only for Christians, and that is something that, I mean, I guess I possibly could do that in a virtual sense, have like a specific video, service time, where I go through those particular regulations that are set upon that are set upon the Lord's Supper there. But I just think it's something that needs to be done when we're physically brought together, and I think I'd have a much better opportunity to protect the table, or to guard the table when we're together physically. So, but like I said, if this were to last for another 6 months, or if this were to last for another extended period of time here, I may try to figure out a way to do it in a way in which my conscience is clear there. So that's it, man. So, and I mean, just heading out of the coronavirus, I think that you're going to see a lot of churches do a lot more stuff online. I mean, we've got the internet here. I mean, the internet has been huge. It's revolutionized completely changed the way in which the world operates, just like the printing press did. some 500 years ago. And so, I mean, I think that this is definitely something that we need to utilize. So I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing, heading out of this, but I can definitely guarantee you that we'll be doing more stuff online, or we'll be offering more stuff, through the internet as a church here. So
Yeah. Yeah. And there've been a lot of lessons learned through this 6-7 week period at this point, and things that
yeah,
we can do. And now that we know that we are capable of doing,
right.
like you said, with the internet, but like my wife and I were talking yesterday as well. And I think this time period, this break that we've had, and it's given me
Excuse me.
and her a lot of motivation to come back and be stronger and be better and be bigger,
Yeah.
than we were before, which I've kind of used that to drive me, and I just can't wait to be back in the Lord's house with the Lord's people.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be back and to do things bigger and to do things better, but also to continue on with this strong online presence we have, and to continue with the 2 pastors in a pod, which might not have existed if it weren't for the coronavirus.
We had talked about this for
Yeah.
a good 6, 7, 8 months prior to actually doing it. And this coronavirus said, all right, it's time. So
Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun. And I think the same thing
Yeah.
with online giving as well, and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of forced us to make some changes, forced us to make some moves. And I think
enter into the 21st century. Yeah.
going forward, we'll continue with them. So
Yeah. So, all right, my friend, that's all I have for you today.
do you want to talk about?
Oh my goodness gracious. Yes.
I had it on here. I got you covered.
Oh, thank you. You are a lifesaver. So we have a big announcement, don't we?
This is very exciting.
Yes, very exciting. So do you want to make it? You go ahead. You do it.
Okay.
I've been talking for a while.
Sure. So what we are planning on doing, and I don't think we have a date locked down for this yet. Did we lock a date down last week?
Yeah, next Thursday.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. All right, we're back up here. So next Thursday, we're going to be hosting
next Thursday evening.
Yes, next Thursday evening.
Yeah.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, yep.
7 o'clock. Next Thursday evening, 7 o'clock, we will be hosting 2 Pastors and a Pod live.
Raise the roof.
So when you're watching this right now, this is obviously all pre-recorded, but next Thursday, next Thursday. So not this Thursday.
Not this Thursday, but next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Let me get a date. Let me get a date here real quick.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep talking.
Let me clarify that. So on that Thursday, we will be doing 2 Pastors in a Pod live, which means you can jump in to our conversation on Zoom. All right. So what we're doing right now is we're recording this on Zoom, which is an online video conferencing website. So on that Thursday, what you can do is you can go to the website Zoom, ZOOM.us.
Yep.
Again, that's Zoom.us. You can create an account for yourself. So you'll need either a computer or a tablet or an iPad. You can even use your smartphone. You're going to create an account on Zoom.us, and then what we'll do on that Thursday is we will send a link out to you on Thursday night. You can click that link, and you can be in this very Zoom room with us while we do 2 Pastors in a Pod. You can ask us questions. You can comment. You can tease Pastor Dan for having the title as Billy Bob Joe.
Or wearing the same shirt like 5 times in a row. I've realized that my wardrobe needs to expand. So
yeah, it's going to be live. So basically, again, we'll send you a link. You'll jump in. You can see yourself on the camera. You'll see us on the camera. And we'll have a great big discussion. It is going to be an absolutely fantastic time.
Yep. So that date is Thursday, May 7th. So Thursday, May 7th at 7 p.m. And like Brett said, we will be emailing out instructions and links and all that good stuff in upcoming emails. So I'll probably send that out in an email on Sunday when we send out our sermon stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then if you are not part of our weekly newsletters, or if you're not receiving the Sunday emails with links to our sermons and stuff, and if you want to be a part of this Zoom 2 Pastors in the Pod live, text us or contact the church in one way or another, and we will get you all set up there. So
yeah, and it is going to be a whole bunch of fun. I literally cannot wait for this. So Thursday, May 7th, 7:00. If you don't know how to create an account on Zoom.us and you want some help with the tech stuff, come into or call the church office and get in contact with Pastor Dan and myself, and we'd be more than happy to help with that.
Walk you through that. It's not hard. It's not very hard.
Very easy.
Brett, I even think they may be able to just go to the website and just join a meeting and then like type in the passwords and stuff. No?
That might work. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'll have to check out.
We'll figure it out.
Check that out, and if so, we can put that in the email and let them know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, man. It's good seeing you.
It is good seeing you as well, Mr. Billy Bob Joe. You'll have to get that changed before Two Passes in the Pod Life. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just a thing now. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe that's just what I'm known as from here on.
On the 7th. So, cool. Let's double pump and get out of here. Are you ready?
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Boom.
All right. We'll see you, Dad.
All right. Adios.